New York City's new mayor, Zohran Mamdani, 2 weeks ago gave a speech about immigration. And he invoked the Hijra, the migration of Prophet Muhammad from Mecca to Medina. On the surface, it sounds like a beautiful story about welcoming immigrants, about compassion, and about diversity. But if you know what Hijra actually means in Islamic history and political Islam, Mamdani just told you exactly what his plan is for the New York City. And it's not multiculturalism, it's conquest. Shalom, I'm Miguel and this is Middle East in less than 5 minutes. What Mamdani said. Let me quote him directly. The story of the Hijra reminds us that Prophet Muhammad was a stranger too, who fled Mecca and was welcomed in Medina. Surah Al-Nahl 1641 tells us, "As for these who immigrated in the cause of Allah after being persecuted, we will surely bless them with a good home in this world." Beautiful, right? A story about welcoming the oppressed, about giving refuge to the persecuted, about building a diverse, inclusive society. Except Mamdani stopped the story right there. He didn't tell you what happened next. The rest of the story. So let me finish it for him. After Muhammad was welcomed in Medina, do you know what happened? Medina became a Muslim entity. Muhammad consolidated power. And then he turned on the Jews, who had lived in Medina for centuries before Muhammad was even born. 3 major Jewish tribes, Banu Kianuka, Banu Nadir, and Banu Qurayza. All of them were expelled or massacred. The Banu Qurayza, between 600 and 900 Jewish men were beheaded in a single day. The women and children were enslaved. That's what happened after the Hijra. That's the rest of the story Mamdani didn't tell you. Muhammad didn't come as a refugee who integrated. He came, gained power, and eliminated those who wouldn't submit. What Hijra actually means. Here's what Westerners hear when Mamdani talks about Hijra: compassion, refuge, diversity, inclusion. Here's what Muslims familiar with Islamic history and political Islam hear: migration is a strategy for demographic and political dominance. Hijra doesn't mean please accept us. Hijra means we are relocating to a place where power can shift. Hijra is not about integration, it's about transformation. It's about moving to a place, building strengths, and eventually asserting control. This isn't my interpretation. This is Islamic history. This is what happened in Medina. This is what happened in every place Islam spread by conquest. And Mamdani, a Muslim Brotherhood aligned politician with a history of anti-Semitic statements, just invoked it as a model for immigration to New York City. Same words, different destination. When Mamdani talks about immigration, you think he means what you mean. You hear diversity, multiculturalism, coexistence. They hear institutions, influence, demographic shift. You hear democracy is a goal. They hear democracy is the door. Same words, completely different destination. This is a playbook. Use Western liberal values to gain entry. Use democratic systems to gain power. Then, once you have power, transform the society to reflect Islamic principles. Not through violence, through demographics, through institutions, through political pressure. That's what Hijra means in the context of political Islam. And Mamdani just told New York City that's his plan. Islam is also politics. Here's what Westerners don't understand. Islam is not just a religion. It's also a political system, a legal system, a complete framework for organizing society. When someone like Mamdani invokes Hijra, he's not talking about personal faith. He's talking about political strategy. Hijra is a concept that has been used by Islamist movements for decades to justify migration to non-Muslim countries, not as assimilation, but as a step toward eventual Islamic dominance. The Muslim Brotherhood has explicitly written about it. Their documents, seized in US raids, talk about destroying Western civilization from within through gradual infiltration of institutions. And Mamdani has Muslim Brotherhood ties. He's praised their ideology. He's aligned with their goals. So when he invokes Hijra, he's not speaking as a liberal politician talking about refugee compassion. He's speaking as an Islamist telling his base, we are following the model. We are doing what Muhammad did. Mamdani's anti-Jewish ideology. Now let's add another layer, Mamdani's antisemitism. This is the same man who, one day as a mayor, revoked the Hijra definition of antisemitism, overturned the anti-BDS order, deleted tweets condemning antisemitism. This is the same man Israel's foreign ministry called a Muslim Brotherhood Islamist, who is anti-Semitic gasoline on an open fire. And now he's invoking a historical event where Muhammad, after being welcomed, turned on the Jews of Medina and massacred them. You think that's a coincidence? Mamdani is telling New York Jews exactly what he thinks of them. He's telling them what their future looks like if his vision succeeds. And the fact that he's doing it openly in a speech should terrify everyone. The destination. Look at the Middle East. If Mamdani's dream comes true, if the Muslim Brotherhood's vision is realized, what does New York look like? Look at the Middle East. Look at countries that Islam conquered. Egypt used to be Christian. Coptic Christians are now 10% of the population, persecuted and marginalized. Lebanon used to be Christian majority. Now it's Muslim majority, torn apart by sectarian conflict. Syria, Iraq, North Africa, all had thriving Jewish and Christian communities. They are gone, driven out, massacred, erased. The Middle East used to be a mosaic of religions and cultures. Islam homogenized it. One religion, one language, one dominant political system. That's the model. That's what Hijra produces. And Mamdani just told New York, that's where we are going. The Palestinian Exception. Here's a question. If Mamdani believes in welcoming oppressed immigrants, if he sees Muslims as modern-day Muhammads fleeing persecution, why doesn't he support Palestinian immigration? Palestinians are oppressed, right? According to Mamdani's narrative, they're refugees. They're persecuted. They should be welcomed. But he doesn't support resettling them. He insists they stay in the Middle East. Why? Because they have a mission there. They have a job to finish. Israel is the only non-Muslim country in the Middle East. And according to Islamist ideology, that's intolerable. Islam conquered that land. It must be reconquered. So Palestinians must stay and fight. That's their Hijra, their role in the larger strategy. Meanwhile, Mamdani's role is different. His Hijra is to New York, to infiltrate, to gain power, to shift institutions. Different theaters, same war. What this means for New York? Let's be very clear about what's happening. New York City just elected a mayor who openly aligns with Islamist ideology, who has ties to the Muslim Brotherhood, who is explicitly anti-Semitic, who revoked protections for Jews on day one. And now he's invoking Hijra, a concept loaded with historical and political meaning, as a framework for immigration policy. This isn't about being anti-Muslim. Most Muslims in New York are not Islamists. Most Muslims are not following the Muslim Brotherhood playbook. But Mamdani is, and he's in charge. That means Jewish safety will continue to erode. Synagogue security will be gutted. Anti-Semitic incidents will spike. And when Jews complain, they'll be told they are Islamophobic. Institutions will be captured, schools, media, non-profits, slowly reshaped to reflect Islamist values. Demographics will shift, not because of natural growth, but because of targeted migration and high birth rates within Islamist community who sees this as a religious duty. And democracy? It will be used until it's not needed anymore. The warning is clear. Mamdani told you what he's doing. He used the word Hijra. If you know Islamic history, you know what that means. If you know the Muslim Brotherhood strategy, you know what that signals. If you know what happened to Jews in Medina after Muhammad's Hijra, you know what's coming. He's not hiding it, he's announcing it in a public speech, using religious language that his base understands perfectly and that clueless Western liberals think is just a nice refugee story. It's same words, different destination. So, when someone tells you who they are, believe them. When a Muslim Brotherhood-aligned anti-Semitic mayor invokes the Hijra in a speech about immigration, he's not talking about Ellis Island. He's not talking about the melting pot. He's not talking about the American dream. He's talking about Muhammad's conquest of Medina, about migration as a tool for power, about using democracy to achieve goals that are fundamentally anti-democratic. New York, you've been warned. He told you, in plain language, using a historical example that makes his intention crystal clear. The only question is, are you listening? I'm Miguel, and this was Middle East in less than 5 minutes. Until next time, Shalom.